This is episode number 9, in case you stopped keeping track, and I sure did. I was reminded. But today's an exciting day. Today we have the opportunity to really dig in to see what's going on in our school systems. And my great guest today is Dr. Eduardo Reyes. He is the superintendent of Chula Vista Elementary School District. Before we get into our conversation, I always want to thank our sponsors who keep this going. Copy Link, Kevin and Kimberly Marshall, thank you so much. Pizzo's Pizzeria. If you want a good pie, you got to go see Santino at Pizzo's. 2 locations, Millennia and Shops at San Miguel Ranch. Minnie Rozlowski at 24K International Realty. And the City of Chula Vista's Food and Waste Program. That is those green containers, remember, to separate and recycle. So let's dive right into it. For those of you who are tuning in outside of our area, which is Chula Vista, California, south of San Diego, let me just take a moment to brag on my school district. My children are a product of Chula Vista Elementary. By the way, Chula Vista Elementary is the largest elementary school district in the state of California with 50 plus schools now.
Correct.
And one of the largest, I think in the top 10 or so, largest elementary school districts in the country. So that is pretty impressive. But I will say, in addition to that, it is also probably one of the best run institutions in the elementary school district. And now it has come into leadership of Dr. Eduardo Reyes, who I've known for a number of years as he's rose up through the school districts as principal, a well-respected man, a very intelligent man, and I think the perfect person to be leading our elementary school district at this point. So I kind of want to answer the 800-pound gorilla question in the room as we're stepping out of COVID. And you're hearing a lot of conversations, a lot of news reports about, well, what's happening with our kids? How are they dealing with this? And it's a very complex, layered situation. And we're going to try to just address it in terms that as a parent, and if you're watching as a parent or even a student, it's going to give you some hope, some confidence, knowing that there are very good people. They know what they're doing. They've got a program, an idea, and things are moving in the right direction. So let's all kind of just talk about that, because you took over as superintendent, sounds like right in the middle of pandemic.
Yes, well, first of all, really happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about an amazing district.
Agreed.
Yes, so I took over the school district right in the middle of the pandemic. And this event, this pandemic, it really did a number on our students. Well, students, families, teachers, everyone, administrators, classified, everyone that either works or as a student or as a parent. It took a really huge toll on everyone. But the ones that really mostly impacted, were students. I can guarantee you that every single student across the nation, probably across the world, had some type of learning loss. Meaning that where they are today or coming out of their pandemic versus where they were supposed to be, there was a gap. Now, for some students, depending on what support systems they had, the gap was very minimum. But for others, it was a substantial gap. As a school system, we have to look at, okay, what are the supports that we need to provide to ensure that we close the gap, that learning loss gap, and that we not only close it as much as possible, but as fast as possible. One of the things, I was having a conversation with a colleague, and one of the things that I'm really concerned about is the impact of the pandemic 5 years from now, 4 years from now. How will the pandemic impact, for example, high school graduation rates 4 years from now, 5 years from now, college entrance?
Right.
And so the earlier we mitigate it, the better off students are going to be while when they go to middle school, high school, college. So, and that's what we're focusing on right now.
So obviously, to mitigate what you've seen happen these last 3 years, and to project out the next 5 to 7 years when these students enter high school and then college, where would you consider the starting line for this study? Would you say that after the first full years of all kids being back in school, which I think would be 2023, the 2022-23 school year uh, is the first school year where all kids had the right and had the ability to go back to class, right?
Correct.
So is that what you're going to base kind of this projected concern starting 2023, and then take a look at it in 3 years, 6 years, and 9 years down the road?
Yes. So let me go back a little bit.
Okay.
One of the first things that I noticed was coming in is that a lot of the conversations across all districts, a lot of it was districts were dealing with a lot of adult issues, right? And I say adults because people feel very passionate about education, right? I'm a parent myself, so very passionate in making sure that my daughters have the right education. So, but when we're dealing with mask, no mask, vaccine, no vaccine, COVID tracing, and think about the staff, right? Our teachers became nurses, and they became mask police, and they were doing all these things that really, I mean, they had to do it because we were in the middle of a pandemic. The reality, it took them out of what we all signed up for, which is teaching and learning. So one of the first things that I did is I said, you know what? We have to go back to teaching and learning. We need to go back to focusing on what we're supposed to be focusing on, which is ensuring that good instruction is happening in all classrooms, making sure that our teachers are doing what they love to do, which is teach our children, our students. And so I think the first thing is the changing the mindset of, okay, yes, we have to have health practices, healthy practices in place. But you know what? Let's focus on what we need to be focusing on. And so that was the first step. Now, moving forward, let's look at the system and what systems we have to ensure we address the needs of our students. Now, something that's really interesting is that the before pandemic, the pre-pandemic, and post-pandemic, the needs are completely different or very different. A school system, a district, all things that were in place that were working well before the pandemic. Some might continue to work well, but others you need to rethink on how to apply them because the needs are different.
Can you give me an example of something that you would say had to be retooled or re-geared after post-pandemic?
Well, I'll give you a couple of examples.
Thank you.
One is when we talk about the learning loss. So the learning loss, if you have students that, let's say they missed first grade and second grade, they're going to be coming in third grade with very, very low reading skills. Normally, they would be coming in pretty much knowing how to read.
Right. At their level.
At their level, right? So now we have students that we have to go back and teach literacy and teach them, how to decode and things that we weren't doing before.
Okay.
Now, I use reading because right now one of our goals is it focuses on reading. If students, or anyone for that matter, but students don't know how to read or cannot comprehend, they don't have the reading comprehension, they're not going to be able to learn any subjects.
Right.
Even math, right? So our focus, first and foremost, is literacy, making sure students know how to read, or not just know how to read, but able to comprehend and use reading as a learning tool. First, you learn how to read, and then you read to learn.
Well put.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I did hear as we were coming out of this from parents and friends is a greater appreciation for teachers. I'd mentioned before we went on air that I had worked in my son's elementary school district as a substitute teacher many years ago. And one of the reasons why I did that was because in my neighborhood, there was some talk about the school that my kids were going to attend, and there were some concerns about the quality of education. Um, and I've always been of the opinion that, well, before you make a decision, investigate, get both sides of the story. So how I got both sides of the story was, okay, I heard their side, and then I went to actually work as a substitute teacher in the school district. And what I learned was, first of all, my neighbors were wrong. And number two, teachers are awesome and they work very hard. And the things that I experienced, even as a substitute teacher, the attitude of parents was very disturbing to me. There seemed to be in this, like, here's my kids, make them perfect. Your job is to teach them and do everything. And I don't have time to help them with homework when they get home. And that was not the philosophy in our house, but I was amazed at seeing this. So in this process with COVID, what I started hearing was how much parents appreciated teachers. I think the parents having to become almost a teacher themselves during COVID to make sure their kids stayed focused, completed their work, did their assignments. And the kids, some of them probably had the same attitude they had at school. They dragged their heels, they procrastinated, they whined, they pushed back. I think parents kind of realized how valuable committed educators are because they deal with this every year for their career. And I think a great appreciation should always be given to teachers now that you know what it's like to imagine if you're just working with your child. Now imagine 30 of them and 30 different learning styles. So I'm a huge advocate of our teachers need to be constantly thanked and appreciated, including not just the teachers. Our friend, Dr. Moises Aguirre said the same thing when he was here. He praised his staff. He praised his secretaries, the custodians, the women in the people in the lunch, all the staff. They all are very important to this comeback story that we have coming out. And I think parents should be wise to understand that when you drop your child off at school, that there is a group of loving people whose goal is to help your child. And we should always, at every opportunity, thank every one of them when you get a chance for what they've done and what they went through, because it wasn't easy for them either during COVID. So that's my soapbox about how you need to love on your school educators and staff. But so what are some of the good things coming out now? What are some of the things that you're seeing good markings and good progress in?
Well, first of all, thank you for recognizing the work that our amazing teachers do, as well as our classified. Our classified is our sports staff. One of the things that I will mention is that during COVID, and you had our custodians there every single day, making sure that campuses were maintained. Our nutrition services department, our cafeteria workers, they were out there. If you remember, were feeding, providing food for our families. They were there every single day. And so our teachers teaching in a way they have never, had no training, right? Because you train to teach, they go to school and they get trained to teach in person and doing group activities, etc. And now they have to relearn how to teach using a different method. So thank you for mentioning that. So one of the things that we're doing, and I think it's important to mention that, yes, there's academic learning loss, like I mentioned before. But the other component is the social emotional. And people say, well, this social emotional, that word keeps popping around. People use it, and what does that mean? Well, imagine a 6-year-old, 5-year-old, a 7-year-old that for 2 years, pretty much 2 years, was isolated, confined to their home, without being able to see their friends, without learning, because they're still learning how to socialize, how to interact with others, how to share, how to play together.
Right.
It's so they're learning those skills. So for 2 years, there was no learning going on in that respect, or very little learning, because there were very few opportunities, even with family members, because cousins and others. People weren't visiting each other. So now coming back, there were, especially at the beginning of the school year, the first semester, a lot of different behavioral issues because students had to relearn how to behave with other students. And so we have that component. There was a lot of uh, kids facing mental health issues, anxiety, depression. If you're in your house and you don't see the sunlight for a couple of years, you get depressed.
I noticed that. I kind of remember as I was growing up those years, your parents say, go outside and go play, you know? And during that time, it was like, no, you can't go outside. You can't play. And for kids who are geared with all this energy and a social desire to make friends, to play sports or to just socialize, to be told that you can't do that, it has to be emotionally challenging um, to not be able to just be around your peers, kids who share the same interest, and to be deprived of that. It is one of the sadder things that come out of this, but hopefully it also points to how important the social aspect of school is, not just the academic, but the emotional and social importance of being in person. I think this situation, COVID, answered the big question, and that is there'd always been conversations about online school and some form of social learning, though they didn't call that or distance learning, they called it online school. That's the wave of the future. That everything's going to be automated and digital. I think that question's been answered pretty hard, and that is it's not an option for the masses.
It's absolutely right. And then, in addition to not being able to play with your friends or interact with others, it gets compounded by the fun activity was somehow connected with the internet or with some kind of a platform
Right.
on your phone or on the computer. So then that just reinforces the one-on-one, just being by yourself, interacting with a online with some kind of a program.
Right.
So one of the things, so we've done several things. In the academic side, we looked at what are the specific needs of students. When you provide supports, you want to provide the right supports. There's in education, we talk about you don't give the same to everyone because everybody has different needs. If you're very thirsty and your friend is very hungry, we're not just going to give the two of you food because you're thirsty, right? You give one water, you give one food. It's the same concept in learning. And so we looked at throughout all the schools, we looked at what are the needs and what are the gaps of students. And then we hired an impact teacher for every single school and for the top 12 unduplicated, highest unduplicated schools. We hired a second one. And this teacher pulls out small groups of students with the same needs, 5 or 6 at the time, and does individualized training to help them close that gap in the specific area that they need. We also have a contract with outside consultants to support our teachers and our principals with on how to provide best instructional practices within the classroom and how can principals support teachers doing that. On the social emotional components, we have social workers at our schools. We have psychologists, hired psychologists to be at every single one of our schools to also be able to provide that support, social emotional support, to for them to be able to help students relearn how to interact with others. So it's not a one size fits all. It's you do the academic, you do the social emotional. The other part is we're looking at, okay, so what activities can we provide to help them? And right now we're looking at really truly expanding our programs, our after school programs, to really reach students with different activities.
So it might be too early to talk about it, but has your teachers and principals um, been able to share with you progress, or their stories, or their conversations where they've noticed from the beginning of the school year um, to now that they've seen measurable improvement? It may not be quantum leaps, but it may be like we've noticed that the kids are maybe quick to acclimate, um, that this impact teachers have served a great purpose in helping keep kids up to speed, and slowly there is this catch-up game, and it's making good progress. Is it too early to say or discuss those kind of measurements?
So there has absolutely been growth, both in the social emotional slash behavior, and as well as the academic. In the academic, teachers absolutely because it actually goes hand in hand many times. If a student is not understanding the lesson and is just not getting the lesson because he or she does not have the pre skills
Right.
to be able to learn it, they're going to be starting to do something else,
Right.
that may seem disruptive. So we have seen a decrease in behavioral issues. Now, are there still behavioral issues? Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why we've hired many different behavioral specialists to support schools. But we've seen a significant decrease in behavioral issues. We've also, especially the most serious discipline issues. The other one is in regards to the academics. The impact teachers work directly with the classroom teacher, and so they're seeing the progress to the point where many of those students are exiting the impact teacher support, and we're getting new ones that maybe they didn't have as much of a need, but now we can start serving them as well.
Good, good. Well, that's good. So let's talk a little bit about some more of these after-school programs, because school will work through that, but after-school programs, a lot of times these kids don't have someplace to go after school, and you mentioned that they don't have programs after school, and they go home to an empty house or to an area where they can be influenced with not such good behaviors. Let's talk a little bit about some of those after-school programs that you're rolling out or improving, or actually what's new on the horizon.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm going to tell you that I truly believe that education is sort of it's like an equalizer. I say an equalizer because, see, education provides opportunities. Opportunities opens doors, and those open doors provide our success stories. And I say this because of a student. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have a person, any age, that could be an amazing piano player, but has never sat in front of a piano. That potential gone, never used, right? That's why the opportunity is so important. So by providing the right opportunities, or a wealth of opportunities for students, then you're actually able to not just students not able to discover their own potential, but actually do something with it, and then perhaps in the future pursue that to become that amazing pianist, right? So we have a very strong partnership. We have had it for many years with organizations such as the YMCA,
Right.
And they have an amazing program, after-school program, that it's an enrichment program. They have different activities. They provide different supports. They have summer school, also classes and programs. Next year, we're going to continue with that amazing partnership, but we want to expand it to more opportunities. Let me share some with you some of the opportunities that we want. We want to focus it on one, technology. So within technology, we're going to have robotics, which is using the VEX coding system, and the VEX coding system is the one that's used for international or national competitions. And we want to have our students get ready to and understand and get to be able to code and compete, so they can actually, when they go into middle school, there's so much further along. Drones. So we're also purchasing drones so they can have drone clubs or drone programs. We have different types of engineering and visual performing art. I'm sorry, visual like graphics. And but we also have our VAPA, our visual and performing arts. So we have our music, our drama, all that. We have our sports. We want to grow our sports to have leagues at every single one of our schools for them to be able to compete in many different sports.
Wow. Okay.
Then we have
like middle school and high school, well, mostly high schools, right?
correct.
Okay.
And then we also want to have different activities that actually students want. A couple of weeks ago, what I did, I met with all my, every semester, I meet with student presidents of all schools. So we have this big meeting, and I invite all the student presidents, and I just have a conversation with them. And part of the conversation that I had, or the questions that I asked them, is, you know what, if you got to choose any activity or a series of activities after school, on Saturdays, intersessions, and or summertime, what would they be, or what would it be? And it's really interesting because many times we forget to ask students,
Right.
the user, right? And we assume, oh, I'm sure they would love that or this, right? And
Like
so,
every kid loves broccoli, right? We were told.
so it was great because they came up with so many things that I would have never guessed. For example, we had so many students say, we would love a cooking class. So I would have never thought of offering a cooking class. But now, after hearing students say, you know what, let's offer some cooking classes after school. Many different sports. They talked about drones. That's how it came about. I go, you know what, let's buy those drones. Let's have teachers or even parents be able to teach a class. So right now, what we're doing is we are going to be actually hiring people that are interested in teaching a class after school, or on Saturdays, or during the summertime. It could be teachers, it could be classified, or it could be parents. So if somebody has an interest on, I don't know, they want to teach coding, hey, let us know. Be more than happy to hire you for that class after school. That way, we're not just confined to a small group of people, but actually we have many different parents that have time and have interest and the skills to teach those classes.
No, prior to COVID, you had the innovation station. You had sixth graders go through, every sixth grade class go through that coding program, which Mike Bruder sitting here in the audience, he was the mastermind who part of that, who really brought that in. And kids still talk about it. As I talk with kids, I'm involved in VEX robotics in Sweetwater's district. And many of the kids that we talk about who are from that remember going to that class, and it ignited that excitement. So are you saying now for those kids who want to learn coding that they can learn it prior to sixth grade?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we did, we asked principals, could you please check with your classes, with your staff and students, see how many are interested in offering an after-school robotics/coding. You can call it club or class,
Right.
however you want to call it, right?
Clubs are always fun.
Yeah. And so we got a response from 12 schools. So fine. So we bought all the equipment. So we have it right now in storage. And it's just a matter of now the schools need to find the person to teach that class after school. And they're going to get paid. They'll get paid. And the other part is that I want to make sure that everything is free for parents.
Are those programs like, let's take this robotics, because it's something I'm starting to work more with again. And we'll talk about that later. To hire somebody, have you thought about reaching into like Sweetwater School District and talking to some of the students who are involved in the VEX robotics program to come in and coach and teach these kids hands-on. These were previous students a few years ago.
Mhm.
They're now, 17, 18. They might even be going to San Diego State, Southwestern College. They might be leaving local, but they have that on-hand experience of programming, designing, and building and competing in a robotics VEX program. Have you thought about making that opportunity available to them?
That's a great idea, because the kids that went through our system, many of them, they were involved with robotics for years. Now many of them are in San Diego State or UCSD, and what a great opportunity for them to make some money and give back to students.
Well, Sweetwater's robotics program is one of the most successful in the country. And the gentleman that runs that program is constantly being approached because they do work closely with VEX about running bigger competitions. So it's a great arena for, if we can go younger into your student body and really get them interested in robotics, it actually gives our middle high school district a head start in competition, because they come in more mature, more wise, and more technically savvy to be competitive. And I think that just boosts, both for drones or robotics. And now I'm hearing conversations about cyber.
Mhm.
There's so many avenues. You're right. You've got a plethora of opportunities for kids. It's not just an after-school program to sit down and color in a book or play a little bit of sports. You seem to have really figured out structure, and opportunity could be that game changer, getting kids. Well, we won't digress here, but we both kind of grew up in a time when school programs, as we went through school, were cut. Proposition 13 in
Correct.
its earlier forms. A lot of the programs that kids needed, speech and debate, music, drama, for a while was cut. But I do remember about 6, 7 years ago, watching Chula Vista Elementary be the first school district in South Bay to start bringing music back,
Mhm.
the mariachi. And it has done wonders for the aptitude of kids. Not all kids are musically inclined. I am one of those. But programs that kept me engaged in school for me was auto shop and wood shop. Those are things that I enjoy doing. I know you can't bring those back, but finding things like you said that engage kids, that help them think creatively but with fun, I can only imagine the support it does and the increase it does for their aptitude. Again, I'm not going to point out to Mike again, but Mike told me we have 5 innovation programs going on right now. And these, can you just touch on those? We have the innovation station, the hydro station, the
Health station.
health station.
So yes. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to be able to provide opportunities for students to look at career fields that are maybe they never thought about or they didn't even know they existed. So we have the energy station, the hydro station, innovation stations, we have the health station, and currently we're going to be opening up soon a sound station, which we're incredibly excited about. The sound station, students are going to be able to learn about different careers in the field of creativity, creative arts and sound. And so there's going to be a podcasting studio there. They're going to be able to create music, record music, edit. They're going to be able to do this storyboards. I mean, all the different things that going into the creative arts of sound. And so the whole purpose of the stations is, let me go back a little bit. We tend to follow the path that we know. And so, for example, both my parents are in education, right? So I follow the path. Many times, if a parent is an architect, they may follow that path. But again, there's so many other careers that if we don't know about them, we don't know if they interest us or not. The goal here is to basically plant a seed and to let students know in the grades of 4th, 5th, and 6th. Hey, listen, so these are all the different careers that exist within this area. Or, for example, energy or hydro, music, and then for them to know to get to know it And then if they're interested, they can pursue it later on.
See, I'm a product of what was known back in the day as ROP, Regional Occupational Program. And my road to where we're sitting in the seats today has been a very unique road. A conversation, a story for another time. But you're right. Had I not been introduced to that, and I was actually introduced to it in elementary school, that my life may have changed direction. I may not be the person I am today. I may not be sitting in this seat. I may not be, in my eyes, as successful as I am. The opportunities that was given to me created a new pathway for me. No one in my family is doing what I'm doing. So, first of all, my father was an electrician, which is great, but I'm colorblind. That wasn't going to work out. So, I had to kind of find my way. But I think that's exactly what you're saying here is give these young people the opportunity to find their way instead of pigeonholing them into, well, because your dad or your parents do this, you should consider you have to do the same thing. But give them an opportunity because the world is big and it's got a lot of opportunities and it's changed a lot since my kids started school. Everything's changed. So I'm really happy to see that the Chula Vista Elementary School District has discovered that. And I think they've discovered that because one, they've got great leadership. And number two, their leadership are really good listeners. And you're asking the right question. And that question is, instead of us telling you what you want, you tell us what you want. I think that drives the enthusiasm and the interest and the engagement in young people. So I think you've hit that one out of the park.
One of the things that you mentioned is, and to me is extremely important. Yes, provide opportunities for students, but provide opportunities for students for them to find their own talents, their own potential, right? Like I mentioned before, once you know you have something, then all right, so maybe I can develop that. I think it was I want to say Mahatma Gandhi that said a person's worst fear is finding out their own potential, because then now I got to do something about it, right? And so that's what we want. We want our students to get to know themselves, get to try new things, and have new experiences. Not just about what is being taught, or, for example, if it's the hydro station, about water, but also within that concept, also they're going to be working with other students. So, okay, so it's about teamwork, it's about collaboration, it's about critical thinking skills. These are all the skills that, honestly, I think sometimes they get lost. And right now, to be successful in any career, you got to be able to think critically. You got to be able to see the big picture. You got to be able to be creative, to understand, to work with others, to have good writing skills, academic language. And those are built within a program. So it's not a class that okay, today we're going to talk about critical thinking.
Right.
It's not that. Those are things that are embedded within the instruction.
They almost self-discover it, don't they?
Correct.
Yeah. So back to robotics, I think that's why I think it's a great program to offer, because in robotics teams that I've been working with, it's a team of talents. Not everybody are what they call the drivers, and not everybody are the programmers, and not everybody's the managers. During the robotics seasons, that starts usually late in the year and runs through March, through Sweetwater. I've been a judge, and some of the things that when I go there as a judge, our job is to talk with the team and listen to how they figured out how to solve a problem as a team. So well, the driver says, I need this to happen. The programmer programs that to happen. The manager makes sure everybody stays on task. And when you meet a team of 3 or 5 or 7 people, they all have a task. And the task is not appointed to them. It's a task that they stand up and say, I'm good at that. I can do that. And it gives them a chance to express their talents. I think that's a great example of a melting pot of a teamwork, that there's not all managers, all programmers, or all drivers. They all work together as a team to accomplish that goal, which is to compete and win. But they all have something they enjoy doing. And during the interview process as a judge, they have to explain to you. We ask them to explain what their job is and how they figured this problem out. And it's incredible to see how ingenious these young people are at, their ingenuity when they're posed with the same challenge that every team in this competition has, but how they figured out how to solve it different than the other team. And that is, I think, one of the great aha moments in this type of world is that none of the teams came up with the exact same solution.
And you make a very interesting point, because the reality is that's life.
It is.
That's life. I mean, think of a company. You have your marketing department, you have your finance department, you have your salespersons, you have your managers, etc., your line workers, everyone. And if you think about it, every single position is equally important, because without any of those positions, you could not accomplish the goal.
Right.
So that also provides a lens on, or a view through a different lens on organizational structures, right? And individual that, I'm not better than you, you're not better than me, you're not more important than me, or I am of you, because we all need each other to accomplish the goal.
Yeah. I had this conversation with my son when he was younger. He wanted to go into the movie industry. And I had friends in my time, different generation than him, in that same industry. But back in the 80s and 90s, in the entertainment industry, it was cutthroat. It was dog eat dog. It was climb over. It was superficial. It was about the me, like, I'm going to be successful. So my son decided he wanted to go to the industry. I warned him as he was in college. I said, be careful, because you might find that people are going to use you. They're going to step on you. And my son was quick to say, Dad, that's not the way it is anymore. He says that attitude doesn't work in my industry. If you cannot work in a synergetic collaboration environment, you will not survive, because people won't work with you. And if people won't work with you, then you don't have work. And as we talk now, and as he's in the industry, that partnership, like you said, you've got in production, you've got lighting, you've got a director, you got a producer, you've got your talents, you've got your editing, you have your distribution, and all that has to work together to make something successful. And without one of those working right, it doesn't work. So it's a breath of fresh air to see that is something that is more prevalent today, and more encouraged and more by design than it was in the past, which gives me great hope for the new world we're stepping into. How are we doing on time? Good. So, got it.
Yeah, and I just want to comment, make one more comment on that, is that everything that goes on in the innovation stations, it actually transfers over to the classroom. Students learn to be able to ask questions and have that leadership, and have that, I'm okay. It's okay to ask a question. It's okay to have a dialogue with my partner. It's okay to say, you know what, let's find a different way, think outside the box. In fact, it's encouraged. And that kind of thinking is what creates progress academically. We don't teach the way I learned, or maybe that you learned.
No, I don't think so.
Because when I was in school, it was the teacher spoke and we listened. Here, the whole idea is for the teacher to be a facilitator of learning, and for the learning and those conversations, those deep conversations, truly happening among students. So they become the owners of the learning through, obviously, the facilitation of the teacher, and the purposeful engagement of that the teacher provides.
So I don't want this podcast to end without highlighting a couple of great things, because in this time, and we've talked a lot about coming out of this COVID, you've had some great successes. First of all, you were recognized as a superintendent recently with an award, right?
Correct.
Right. And tell me a little bit about that award.
Very unexpected. I'm very honored. Very unexpected. I was very surprised, but I was recognized as the superintendent of the year by CALSA, which is the California Association of Latino Superintendents and Administrators, for the San Diego region.
Congratulations. And then another thing, and you can take some time on this one. You also had an award. Talk about the Visual Performing Arts and Innovation Program, but there was an award you received recently. That was at the Dual Language Award.
Correct.
To talk about how that came about. What is that award, and why was Chula Vista Elementary recognized for it?
So Chula Vista Elementary has 22 schools that have the dual language immersion program. Now, I wish I could take all the credit on that one, but this has been work in progress for many years. And so for many years, we've continued to increase the number of schools that have a dual language immersion program. Now, we have two different systems. We have a 50-50 model and a 90-10 model. They both work the same in regards at the end. They end up being pretty much the same result, having the same results. But I'm really proud of the dual immersion program that we have. We have so many students from other districts that come into our district because they wanted to take advantage of what we have. The students learn side by side the Spanish speaker and the English only speaker. They learn side by side to learn both languages at the same time. So you have a sixth grader that started as an English only student that is pretty fluent in Spanish. And then you have a Spanish speaker, started as a Spanish speaker only, that now is fluent in English. To me, being bilingual is, yes, it's about the language. It's about able to have more additional skills, etc. But the whole idea is for students to be bilingual, bicultural, biliterate, so that they're able to read, write, understand the cultures. That just opens up their horizons and their mind and the way the mind works. Now, ideally, we'd be able to offer students for them to learn more languages. In fact, right now we do have Filipino classes, but it's an after school Filipino classes, and I was just it's a 12-week program, and I was just at the celebration of students finishing up their program, and my commitment was to expand the Filipino language classes, either combination of after school, Saturday, or both, for more schools. It would be amazing for our students to be able to have additional languages. And why stop there? Why not have Korean, Chinese, other languages?
Right. And then recently you had the Best of awards that I remember seeing. Do I remember correctly? We published the Best of in our May issue of our hometown newsprint. Yeah. You guys were recognized as one of the best schools for your English, Spanish, and your performing arts, right? Was there anything else we're missing?
Yeah. So let me talk about our performing arts, because our performing arts are visual and performing arts.
Yeah.
So we have, again, this has been 6-7 years. I mean, we've done it for many years, but 6-7 years to now, we've completely, just focused on visual and performing arts. And so our students are able to, different schools focus on different areas. But for example, we have some schools that focus on the performing arts. And they have incredible drama performances, and they're doing this amazing plays. And others are musicians. And I say musicians, but because they're playing incredible in different instruments. We're actually starting our very first mariachi group at 2 different schools.
Excellent.
This coming summer, they're starting our first mariachi groups. We also have our visual arts. So visual and performing arts, to me, we talk about opening the minds. Well, this combination of opening the minds and opening their hearts, right? And so when you expose a child or an adult, but especially a child, to the arts, it changes their world, and they're able to travel. Think about it. With the arts, if you know about arts and get to know about learn about arts and practice arts, you get to travel through time. You get to travel through through countries and cultures, and you're able to see through the eyes of that composer or that painter. And so, to me, it is much more than just learning how to play an instrument.
It's the passion.
It's the passion.
Wow, that was a lot of good information. And again, we could talk here for hours, but unfortunately, we don't have the studio for that long. But I think this was just a good opener, and I would definitely want to entertain having you come back next year after we have more things to talk about, how some of these after-school programs are launched and what are some of the successes of that, whether it's the drones, robotics, music, mariachi, or VAPA, whatever it is. I think it's good to kind of keep everybody apprised to the progress, because progress is what we really need to be talking about, is moving that forward. So I just want to say again, thank you for tuning in. I want to thank our sponsors, CopyLink, Pizzo's Pizzeria, Minnie Rozlowski with 24K International, and the City of Chula Vista Food and Waste Program. These are all programs you probably have heard about. If you need to check in on some of these things, see our sponsors, understand more what's happening in the City of Chula Vista, don't forget to always pick up your monthly issue of Our Hometown Newsprint. It usually comes out on the market around the middle of each month. And learn about what's going on in your community, because when you know what goes on in your community, you're well informed. And when you're well informed, you're just a better citizen. So that's it for today. I'm Michael Monaco, your host for Our Hometown Podcast, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you for tuning in. God bless.
Thank you.